I think the shot, there you're looking again at some of the people as we expect that the president's hearse will be arriving with the motorcade in just about the next couple of minutes. The service, we understand, will get underway right around 12:05 before it departs for Washington, D.C. There on Special Air Mission 39.
Thinking about President Carter, certainly in Cobb County with cold day here in January, and President Carter in Cobb County and waiting to depart for Washington, D.C. During warmer days, President Carter's great love of baseball and the Braves, Cobb County and Turner Field, Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, and we've talked about how he was good at a myriad of things, whether it was fly fishing or woodworking or art, or he wrote poetry as a means of expression and a means of relaxation. But he's one of the few public officials who get the opportunity to throw out the first pitch who look like he knew how to throw a baseball. And
yep.
He spent all those years playing baseball in Sumter County and leading up to the White House and during the White House years, having those famous softball games with his brother Billy involved, playing softball against the media, and he was very athletic. He was running up until he was 80, and we look back and say, wow, how did this guy live to be 100? Well, in part he was very, very active, very, very athletic, running, and he liked to throw a ball around, and was a guy who was very, very physically active at a time when a lot of American politicians were a lot more sedate.
Yeah, you look at some of the videos we've been showing, and you have to really think, wow, he was 90 years old here. He was 92 years old here. Sometimes it doesn't click when you see the activity matched with what he was doing.
Yes, that's why I always say age is relative. It depends on how well you take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. And, he took care of himself, he took care of others, and I think that's one of the reasons why he lived so long, because, God didn't want him to leave. Yep. He wasn't done. His work wasn't done here, so.
Not yet.
What is it our mothers always tell us? Live everything in moderation,
mm-hmm.
And he certainly did everything, at least health-wise, in moderation.
He did, he did. Right now you're taking a live look again here in Marietta, Cobb County at the Dobbins Air Reserve Base. We expect within the next 2 or 3 minutes the service to start here. It'll be more of a ceremony. You won't really hear anyone speak, but you'll hear a couple of music selections. You'll also hear the 21-gun salute before Special Air Mission 39 takes off to Washington, where we understand there will be a national funeral, a national service happening later this afternoon. That's going to get underway around 3:45 or so. Again, things are running a few minutes ahead of schedule, but we've also been talking about the weather today in D.C. and how that could play a role in the timing of everything. But we know the president will be lying in state in the Capitol. Our Cheryl Preheim has been there. We'll be checking back with her again later. But right now, this is part of the final goodbye to Georgia. Again, the president will be making his way back here to Georgia on Thursday, where he will be having a final resting place back where it all started in Plains, Georgia, reunited with his wife, Rosalind, which I think is really part of this whole, state funeral that's really special, that it really will end back to his humble beginnings.
And right now you're seeing some special guests that were invited by the Carter Center. You have Governor Brian Kemp, he is standing there for this departure ceremony, as well as Mayor Andre Dickens, the Carter Center Board of Counselors. They're also there, the Carter family, they are there. And this will be, as you mentioned, a very quiet ceremony. We are just waiting for the remains to be loaded onto Special Mission 39.
Ceremonial and knee.
All right, the departure ceremony will start just minutes from now. We are preparing and waiting for the late President Jimmy Carter's remains to be loaded onto Special Mission 39 right now. You're taking a live look at Dobbins Air Reserve Base. We see special guests of the Carter family dignitaries, local officials, Governor Brian Kemp, Mayor Andre Dickens, waiting for that final moment where we will see the late president take his final journey to the nation's capital.
Washington is going to be a very, very busy place for the next 13 days. The inauguration is the 20th. Here we are, and we are sitting on January 7th. So these two events of a lot of detail and a lot of dignitaries certainly are nestled next to each other.
Yeah, a lot of security too. We've been talking about that, considering this is all happening after the certification of the election results yesterday and other events happening. So we're going to be seeing a lot but hopefully everything will go according to plan. We know a lot of these plans have been in place for many years, and many specific details, exactly how President Carter wanted them to go. Again, for the most part, this will be a quiet service, a quiet send-off. You'll hear the 21-gun salute. You'll hear a couple of musical selections by the band before the national service that we'll see take place in Washington.
And the 21-gun salute is one of the highest military salutes you can give to and a moment to honor a head of state, a fallen hero. It is really a national occasion, and this is what we're witnessing right now. We're witnessing a moment in history where the motorcade carrying the remains of the late president is arriving on the tarmac before it is loaded onto Special Air Mission 39.
So much of this tradition has been really rooted in the funeral of Abraham Lincoln in 1865, and that tradition of burying an American president certainly has followed the choreography of that tragic event so long ago. But it is interesting how in a country that doesn't embrace a lot of tradition and a lot of nuance from the past, we certainly do when it comes to events such as burying a U.S. president.
You're looking right now live at the Air Reserve Base as the hearse is now making its way in for this service, this ceremony that we'll see take place here any moment now. Special Air Mission 39, taking the president up to Washington. And again, this special air mission will also be returning President Carter back here to Atlanta, the Atlanta area, and then eventually planes after some time in Washington.
That was a quick trip from the Carter Library and the Carter Center.
Yeah, quicker than they thought. You know, they had originally planned to arrive around this time, but a few minutes early.
Anytime anyone is able to navigate in the midst of Atlanta traffic, you know something is going on.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. Well, they seem to have a pretty clear way, especially this time of day. I think probably was a good opportunity for them to avoid some of that normal traffic, even with the motorcade.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the weather in Washington, D.C. has been bitterly cold today, though there has not been any snow. There was snow on the ground, but it has delayed events by about an hour. And I think one of the things worth watching in the hours ahead is to see how that weather may impact more of what is to come. We simply don't know that. I think we'll have a better sense of that once the plane lands in D.C.
And the family is loaded into this motorcade. They're on the buses behind the hearse, where they also witness this departure ceremony that will get underway in just a matter of minutes, which is what we are looking at live at the moment.
You see the American flag and the flag of the president.